Welcome back to the shop, everybody. This is Thursday Night Fixins number 36, and it's been a while since I put out a Thursday night video, but several of you probably wondering what I've been up to, and I know some folks have asked about the cat. This is actually the shop cat, who these days wants to be an outside cat. Every time the door opens, she wants to run out and hunt birds and do other kind of cat things. So she's doing great. She's been gaining weight just like the rest of us, and seems to be perfectly happy, aren't you? All right, let me put her where she won't be bothering us, and I'll be right back and we'll get started here. So I've been pretty busy in the shop, but not any particular projects that I've recorded any videos on. I've been doing a lot of cleaning up and organizing, put up some shelves higher up on the wall above me up here, and got all of the big casting patterns all moved up onto those shelves and off the floor. That was a pretty good little project, but not really video worthy. Gotten a couple other projects I've started on, but not ready to start putting videos out on those yet. One thing that I will share with you is my poor old Accurite DRO bit the dust. I don't know how old this is. I've had that Bridgeport mill that it came with when I bought that mill, and it was probably, I'm going to guess, at least 10 years old at that point when I purchased it. And I think I've had that mill for maybe 6 years now. Had it for a while, but time to replace it. It would no longer show any readings on the display here. It would show, all the information on the display. It just wouldn't read anything from the scales, it didn't seem like. So I went through all of the setup, including the initial factory setup, and it would go about halfway through all the settings and just stop dead about halfway through the settings. And I went through it multiple times. I opened up the case, cleaned all the contacts, and reseated all the connectors. Pulled, it's got one chip on it that's removable, I'm guessing is a ROM chip on it. And it's one of the smaller integrated circuits, nothing like the big, huge honking looking cockroach things that we had in the old days. It's a newer chip, but anything within the last 20 years is going to be that way. But I pulled and reseated that, and it still just gets about halfway through the setup and locks up. So I'm guessing that ROM chip has gone out. So anyway, if you've got the same unit from Accurite, which is a, let's see if I can read the number here. It is a 2X mill D200. It's 2 axis only for your X and Y. If you got the same unit that is giving you trouble, that you could use this for parts, get in touch with me. Get in touch and I'll ship it over to you if you think you could use it for parts. Like I say, all the display and numbers are all fine and very bright. It's a bright blue display on all the characters. All of the buttons are functioning on it, including up until it locks up. You go through all of the keypad functions, even though this rubbery keypad's kind of disconnected around the edges. It's still fully functional and worked fine up until it just quit. But keys still work on it. But it powers up fine, just won't go through the setup. So let me know if you could use it. So I started researching and looking at a low-cost alternative for this. Not ready to put out the money for a DRO Pros, which would have been my preference if money was not an object, because I've got the one with magnetic scales from DRO Pros on the lathe, and I love it. It's a great DRO, but looking at a cheaper option to replace on the Bridgeport, and I came very, very close to getting the blue DRO set up. It looks very nice. I watched some of the videos of other YouTubers that did the installs. The individual pieces, you can buy it a piece at a time. You can start out with just one scale even, like put it on your longest scale or whichever one you use the most, whether it's X or Y. and you can get in pretty cheap with it. I like the fact it used, a generic Android tablet for its display that was touchscreen, looked really nice. Came very close to getting that, but I was not in a rush. Hadn't been doing any machine projects recently where I would have depended much on the DRO. I did a few, drilling operations and very, very minor milling, but nothing I was really needing the DRO. So I'd put it off for a few weeks, and before I actually ordered the blue DRO setup, I happened to search on eBay for Accurite stuff and happened to come across a new old stock, newer display model than this. Display control unit only, no scales. So I got to looking, and what I have already mounted on the Bridgeport are the Accurite glass scales, 10 micron. And looking at the documentation and technical details on the new old stock unit, which is newer upgraded, this is long obsolete. The newer upgraded one did support 10 microns, so I was able to get that unit much cheaper than the full blue DRO with 2-axis and the tablet and all that bundled together. I was able to get in cheaper and keep my glass scales, which are just a little more accurate than what the blue DRO scales would have been. So I'm happy with that, and take you over and we'll take a shot of the display on that new Accurite over there on the Bridgeport that I've got mounted. So let's take a look at that real quick. So this is a new display control unit from Accurite that I got off of eBay that was new old stock, and it does work with my original glass scales with the old Accurite unit. So as I said, it's newer, more up to date, more bells and whistles, but it works really well, and I'm glad I was able to keep the glass scales, get it a little bit cheaper, and get a little more up-to-date unit that'll hopefully continue on for years to come. So I'm really happy with that new setup. It works flawlessly and has a few extra bells and whistles over the old unit, but like a lot of things, I don't dig deep into a lot of the details, but it's nice to know they're there if you ever have a need for them. So that was an added plus to get upgraded on the newer features on that new display. So really happy to have that back up and actually do a little bit of an upgrade and keep the glass scales to boot. So I would have, went with the blue DRO in a heartbeat. They look great. I'm sure I would have been super happy with that, but I'm happy with how this has turned out. Another thing that happened recently, I attended the Hustex manufacturing show in Houston in the past couple of days, and that was a lot of fun. Got to meet a lot of people, cover some of the things that I saw. The show is, since it's in Houston, it's geared more toward oil and gas type people manufacturing for the oil and gas industry. So they had some really big, nice bandsaws down there, and they had, pipe and casing and solid rounds, that were this big around that they were cutting on the show floor. And they also had, you name it, just typical manufacturing CNC type stuff. They had plasma cutters, water jets, CNC mills, lathes, you name it. It was all there. It's good to be able to stop and talk to people and get a feel for, the different equipment that they were selling and representing out there. Got several good contacts on things that I needed information on, and made some networking contacts with people that I'll stay in touch with now that I know they're out there and what they do. One of the things was on the casting side of the business. I'm trying to get that started up to where I can have castings available, so I've got contacts and information. I'll be making some progress on that pretty soon, hopefully. So I know some of you have been asking about the castings. One of the booths had the Aloris tool holders and tooling, and I stopped and looked at that, and they had, the Aloris tool post like I've got over there on my 14 by 40 lathe, and got to looking at it, and the newer Allures tool posts don't have that tapped hole in the body. And I'd remembered that one of the videos from one of the other YouTubers had pointed out the hole and had went through a catalog and showed what that was for, but I'd forgotten, and I was trying to remember, and I was talking to the sales rep there and mentioned that tapped hole and said, you know, I don't see the tapped hole, and I know that somebody had, you know, shown us what it was for. Do you know what that was for? Because I don't remember. And he said he'd never seen the tapped hole. I guess he was newer to the Allures line, but we looked at that body and there was not a tapped hole in it like the older Allures tool post. And on my way back from the show, it dawned on me that I thought that Chuck Bomarito was the one that had shown that tapped hole and shown it in the Allures catalog. So when I got back, I searched his YouTube videos, and sure enough, he showed it. He showed what attachment went with that tapped hole on the tool post. So I'm going to show a picture of a screenshot I did from Chuck's video, and we'll be right back and talk about it a little bit more. So what that is a work stop, where when you mount that attachment on that tapped hole on your tool block, as you approach your work with the carriage, or even with the compound, but typically with the carriage, you'll run into the part, and you can adjust that, you know, with a different axis and rotation. You can adjust it to touch off or stop at different points on your work depending on which operation you're doing. So on the Takasawa lathe of mine, it's a gap bed, but it's a little more involved gap than what you see on a lot of the gap beds. On mine, the gap part of the block that you usually remove on most lathes, and you do on this one as well, it has an additional big open gap behind it, which you don't see on all of the gap bed lathes. But that creates a problem because I can't mount attachments and things beyond where the gap is at because of that other big opening there under the chuck. So that limits me on some things, and I've covered that in one or two of my other videos of the problem, you know, of mounting like a dial indicator like Adam Booth and others do, just, you know, slapping it on the way there to get your readings on the dial indicator. I can't do that because I got that big gap there. There's nothing to just slap it on. I run out of way. So with this work stop, it solves some of the problem where I've got a stop that I can mount, but again, I'm limited on how far towards the chuck it can mount. So with this attachment on that Allures tool post, I could make a stop that I could run up to a feature on the part and get, you know, some of the functionality without having it mounted on the missing way down there. So I'm going to wind up, you know, doing a project of that work stop that mounts to the Allures tool post. And I picked up a new 2017 Allures catalog there from the guy, and they do not have that attachment showing anymore as being offered. So that's an FYI. No more tapped hole, which you could tap your own, but they also don't show the attachment. So if that's something that, you know, like me, it just dawned on me that, hey, that's something I could use. If it's something you could use, you might want to look back at Chuck's video, or, you know, sketch out a quick little drawing of that picture I just showed you from Chuck's video, where it shows that attachment that appears to no longer be available. So that's one of the neat things that I came across while I was down there. Other really neat thing is I knew before I went that one of my Fusion 360 heroes was going to be there representing Autodesk, and that's Lars Christensen. And I'd like to give a shout out to Lars and point to a link to his YouTube channel below. And he has helped immensely with not only me, but a lot of people get up to speed on Fusion, answer a lot of the questions, you know, modeling, sketching, CAM, you name it. He has been, you know, a lifesaver on getting people up to speed and, you know, letting you take baby steps. He goes into great detail in his videos. And if you haven't checked him out and you're using or thinking about using Fusion 360, very highly recommend it. Go out, check out Lars' channel. He is super nice guy. Just like on his videos, he is really, really personable when you get to meet him. I wish I could have spent all day there, but it was just a down and back trip. I was only there a couple hours maybe, but wish I could have spent a lot more time with Lars. He's a great guy, very cool, bend over backwards to help you any possible way. So give him some support and love out there. So subscribe to his channel, watch some of his videos, and get up to speed on Fusion. Another area of interest that I was able to find out information about at the show was coolant. I've been using the Coolrite coolant in the Herco CNC mill, and the main reason I'm using Coolrite is because that's the one I could buy a gallon at a time, and that's all I really need is a gallon at a time, because my coolant tank is 17 gallons. Typically the gallon jugs of coolant, when you mix it, it'll make about 20 gallons. And I think that's pretty standard, you know, from one coolant supplier to the next, brand names that is. But at the Houston show, I was able to see not only the Coolrite people, but also the Qualichem. And Qualichem was the one I had wanted to try because I'd seen so many other people on YouTube had tried it, and read on the internet forums like Practical Machinist and other places that people, you know, just like the stuff. I haven't had any problems with the Coolrite, but I wanted to try the Qualichem. And so when I stopped at their booth, I mentioned to them that I would have already been using theirs, or at least tried it, but I couldn't buy it in a 1 gallon. I had to buy a minimum of a 5-gallon pail, and there was nobody locally. It was going to have to be shipped, so a 5-gallon pail, it's going to be a lot more expensive to ship than the 1 gallons would have been. So I'd been buying that Coolrite off of eBay a gallon at a time, and I've only bought a couple gallons of it, but it lasts me, each gallon lasts me about a year. I'll probably lose more of it to evaporation than anything, because as it evaporates down, or it kind of congeals with oil that's, you know, what's floating on top, then you have to refill and top it back up. So 1 gallon will last you probably a year in my case of usage, or maybe a little over a gallon. But when I mentioned that to them, they kind of fished around until they found out who the local area rep would be that I would get in contact with about getting a smaller quantity, or maybe even have them deliver a 5-gallon pail out or something like that, and cut the cost of the shipping. But then one of them, you know, it dawned on me and said, hey, you know, have you checked out Tormach? You know, the small CNC mill people. And I said, no, I hadn't even thought about them. Do they sell the Qualichem? He said, yeah. They said they buy it by the, you know, the big barrel drums from us, and then they repackage it in their own packaging. So check them out on the website. So I did, and that's where I'll buy my next jug of coolant from. So I'll switch to another screenshot here and show you what the price on that is, straight off the Tormach screen. And the shipping was only like 11 bucks on the gallon. So for like $50, it's basically the same price as what I'm paying right now for the Coolrite in the same quantity, 1 gallon at a time. So if you've been wanting to try Qualichem and you couldn't find it in a 1 gallon, which I couldn't, and I searched and searched, there's you an answer. You can get it straight from Tormach. So let's take a look at that page off of their website. So there you have it. That's another good reason to attend these shows, is you just stumble across all kinds of good little tidbits of information that you didn't know. You just wander around, talk to people, share the information. It's a great environment, and I'm glad I was able to, you know, run down there and take it in. So So other than the Houston show, which was put on by the Society of Manufacturing Engineers, and like I say, it was pretty much geared more towards the oil and gas industry in the Houston area and Gulf Coast area, but it was an outstanding show. Glad I was able to run down there, take in and make contact with folks and learn a little bit more about the trade. So if you haven't been able to attend that, I highly recommend it. And again, that's SME, which is Society of Manufacturing Engineers. If you see them putting on a show, you might want to check it out. And by the way, I'd like to give a shout out to Sawhorses. I've got some of their tooling, and it's like anything else. It's import. You typically don't pay as much, but they do have some good products. It's, I would say, a cut above like the Harbor Freight stuff, even though Harbor Freight does have, you know, a few items that are notable that are definitely worth getting. Sawhorses has quite a bit more tooling and things, but again, it may be luck of the draw sometimes. I know I mentioned before, some folks have had trouble with their insert parting blades, and I personally, I've got two of them, 2 different sizes, and they've been working great for me. But Sawhorses actually sent me the free invite to go to that show, so it didn't cost me anything. Just registered with their code and I went. So appreciate it to the folks at Sawhorses, and really nice gesture to pay my way in down there. It was a very nice show to attend. And with that, that's going to be the show for this week. Appreciate you tuning in. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. Be watching for this project coming up soon. I'll be putting a video out on it, as well as some other projects I've been working on. And hope to see y'all soon. Thanks for watching. Hit the thumbs up. See you next time.